What's up everyone, welcome back to Sounds Good Gaming, and apparently we could be seeing a Nintendo Direct this week, so let's talk about it. So yeah, I wanted to take the opportunity to share some predictions and thoughts about the idea of a Nintendo Direct happening this week, and let's talk about where that information has come from. That information has come from two separate leakers, so let's talk about that. Now, the first person who reported this was Switchforce, who is kind of new to the leaks and rumors game from what I can tell. He recently called the Indie Direct, the Indie World Showcase that was happening a couple of weeks ago, he called that correctly, pretty much bang on. The main thing I worry about with people who serve leaks and rumors is the credibility going forwards. Like, is it a one-off fluke, or is it something that they actually have as a sustainable connection with someone on the inside of the industry? Because there's very much a good chance that he just kind of lucked into that information, and it's not something that is going to be a steady flow of information coming to him going forwards. However, if he gets this right, that increases his credibility, meaning going forwards I'd be more likely to trust a leak coming from him. So when I heard that, I was like, interesting, that could be exciting, but ultimately I'm going to put it to the side of my mind. I don't 100% buy into it. I'm going to wait and see what happens. But then Nate the Hate, who is a leaker and rumor specialist essentially within the community, he has also said, okay, yeah, there's going to be a direct on either the 11th or the 12th of September. Is that right? And that is something that Switchforce had mentioned, that it's on a bit of a weird day. It's going to be potentially on a Friday, and obviously time zones could come into play there to make it technically on a Friday in Japan and Thursday everywhere else. That kind of thing, that could be part of the situation. But I do have reason to believe that because Nate the Hate has kind of backed this up, I'm quite sold on the idea of this direct happening. Nate the Hate previously called the Nintendo Direct Partner Showcase that we had in August. He also got bang on the announcement for the Nintendo Switch 2, like the initial announcement trailer that happened way back in January. He knew all that information, and while I don't think his game rumors and leaks are quite as accurate as his event ones are always pretty much bang on, and he seems to be leaning in for another win this week, so we'll see how we go. But aside from that, it just feels like the right time for a Nintendo Direct, like a full-blown presentation. You know, we're getting to the point now where we don't really understand what's going on with Nintendo's first-party titles. We're running out of games to be waiting for. At the moment, we really have like Hyrule Warriors and Kirby Air Riders, and that's pretty much it. Oh, and Metroid Prime 4, who could forget? And I wanted to share some predictions, some thoughts about what I think we could realistically expect to see in this direct presentation. Some of my predictions are a bit more outlandish, but I think most of them are pretty reasonable. And the first thing is, I think we're going to get some updates on some existing games that we've been waiting for. Things like Elden Ring Tarnished Edition, Final Fantasy VII Integrate Remake, whatever the hell it's called, Hades 2, the James Bond First Light game. We've not seen that in a Nintendo Direct yet. I expect that would be something that maybe show up in a show reel or something like that. And then something else I also mentioned on the third party side is Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. I really do think that we could see something from this game as well, because it was announced back at Gamescom, and I think now's the time. It'd be a really good opportunity to show some footage from the game running on Switch 2 so people know what to expect, and maybe give it a rough date for next year as well. And then obviously on the Nintendo side of things, we're waiting for information on Metroid Prime 4. We need the release date. I think we're going to get the release date. I think it's going to be releasing in December, you know, so Nintendo can basically say it technically did release in 2025, and it's going to be coming this year in December. I think we're also likely to get another big reveal for Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment. It did show up in the partner showcase I mentioned earlier, however, that was more of a teaser, kind of some little tidbits and some little hints at stuff for that game. I think it's time to actually give some more payoff to those hints and actually give some reveals about what's going to be happening in the game. You know, a good couple of minute trailer to really kind of tie some stuff together. Was it Fi at the end? Was it the hero? Who knows? Let's find out. I do think, however, we will not be seeing Kirby Air Riders, and the reason I think this is because Sakurai seems to have his own way that he really enjoys doing things, and I think for him that longer form presentation where he gets to talk really in depth about the game mechanics and how it all works, I think that's most likely to be what happens. We'll get another one of those in October ahead of the game coming out in November. You know, we could potentially see Air Riders as part of a sizzle reel at the end, but I think it's unlikely that it gets any other coverage in the Direct. And then lastly, something else that actually has been announced that we haven't heard about yet is Splatoon Raiders. We did see a tiny little snippet of the gameplay before, but I'm really interested to see the scope and scale of this game, and just see more about how they're willing to expand this franchise and what the gameplay is really going to look like. Splatoon is one of now Nintendo's most popular franchises, especially in Japan, so it's really cool to see them willing to expand and experiment with new ideas, and it makes me excited for the future. You know, what does the next Splatoon spin-off look like? Are they going to try different genres? Are they going to attempt different things? Because yeah, it's really interesting, and it would be really cool to see whether Splatoon Raiders is something that, you know, is more of like a team, you know, does it still focus on team multiplayer? Is it more of a single player experience? What is it? Let's find out. That's what I want to see. So it'd be great to get some more information on that, and a release date probably for 2026 at this point. So that's all the things I think we need updates on. If there's anything I've missed, let me know down in the comments below. And I hope you're excited for this Nintendo Direct. If you're excited, why not give the channel a cheeky sub? I'm going to be doing some coverage and content on it, so, you know, a sub to the channel would be super tasty and super appreciated. Thanks. Next up, I want to talk about third-party games, and I think new announcements for third-party games specifically. Now, the first one is, this is actually something that Nate the Hate has been talking about in his leaks, and that is, well, leaks and rumors, and that is Red Dead Redemption 2, tying in with an announcement for the next-gen console version, or the current-gen consoles for PS5 and Xbox Series X. It'd be really cool for Nintendo to have that announcement, really focusing on the Nintendo Switch 2 version. I think it'd be really awesome to see it happening at a Nintendo Direct, and it'll really show that they have that faith in Nintendo Switch, and show that Nintendo have blessed them with a dev kit, because, you know, they're pretty rare apparently, except if you're making a fucking campfire game. No hate to the campfire game, by the way. So yeah, Red Dead Redemption 2, pretty much, I think that's pretty much a lock-in for Nintendo Switch 2, especially considering it ran on the PS4, absolutely fine, ran on the Xbox One, absolutely fine. The Switch 2 seems to be able to outperform those consoles, so it makes sense for it to be here. What I don't think we're going to see, however, is GTA 5. I think the boat may have sailed now on a GTA 5 port. Look, I'm happy to be wrong. Portable GTA 5 on the Switch would be pretty great, but I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna give a bold ass prediction for the internet points. GTA 6 is going to be announced in this Nintendo Direct, coming to Nintendo Switch 2 next year at some point. Maybe not when the game comes out on other consoles, but it is going to be coming to Switch 2, and they've somehow made it work, and it's going to look like ass. Now, do I think that's realistic? No, I don't think that's actually going to happen, but, you know, I'm doing it for the internet points, everyone. You got to understand that. So, yeah, sure. GTA 6 on Nintendo Switch 2, why not? Another thing I don't think we're going to see is Metaphor ReFantazio. You know, we're waiting on the Persona 3 port that's coming from the Persona 3 remake that came out, I can't remember, is it like a year or so ago? I think once that has been released, Atlas will probably be more willing to talk about Metaphor ReFantazio, because I do think that'll be their next game coming to Nintendo Switch 2. Next up, this is another one that I'm surprised it hasn't made it already, and that is Baldur's Gate 3. Now, when I think about Baldur's Gate 3, to me, it feels like the perfect match for Nintendo's hardware. First of all, the game feels very Nintendo in a way. I don't know how to describe it, but it feels like one of those games that feels really at home on Nintendo hardware. I'm sure that the developers behind Baldur's Gate 3 probably want it to happen, so I guess dev kit availability, and if they have one, how long they've had it, is probably going to be what's caused the limit on this. And that's not even mentioning mouse controls, which I think will really elevate the experience on Nintendo Switch 2 versus the other consoles. This kind of Dungeons & Dragons RPG style game really benefits from having a mouse, and you've got two baked right in on the Nintendo Switch 2, so that feels perfect to me for that. So I'd be very surprised if we didn't see it as one of the big announcements, one of the big third-party announcements of this Direct. Next, will we see Call of Duty? I don't know. Who knows? Do I want Call of Duty? No, I don't care, to be honest with you, if Call of Duty makes it to Nintendo Switch. The only reason I'm interested in it is because it was part of the deal when Microsoft acquired Activision Blizzard, is that they had to put Call of Duty onto Nintendo platforms. I think it was for at least 10 years. And is the Call of Duty in the room with us? No. I'm really interested to see if maybe that's an announcement that we see. I think most likely is Warzone. Is we just going to see Call of Duty Warzone ported to Nintendo Switch 2, and that's it. I don't think we're going to see Black Ops, whatever we're on now, Black Ops 100, ported to Nintendo Switch 2. I think it's just going to be Warzone. And here's an even crazier prediction. I think we're going to get Warzone on Nintendo Switch 1 as well. And it's going to look like ass, going to play like ass, but they're going to do it. And then the last thing I'd love to see, this is probably more of a, I would like to see it rather than a prediction in general, and that is Forza Horizon on Nintendo Switch 2. I can't remember off the top of my head which Forza Horizon we're on, but the most recent one, I feel like that'd be a great fit for the portable kind of hardware. Weirdly enough, I feel like Forza Horizon is like good competition for Mario Kart World in a weird way. So yeah, that'd be kind of fun to see. And yeah, those are the third-party games I could think of that I'd like to see, and I think that are realistic to come to the console. These are the kind of caliber of games I think it'd be awesome to be getting onto this platform. Okay, let's move on to Nintendo first party, and I'm going to start with something more interesting. I'm going to start with Mario's 40th anniversary, because the 40th anniversary of Super Mario Bros. Is next Saturday, the Saturday after the Direct is supposed to be rumoured to be happening. Do I think we're going to get any Mario 40th anniversary stuff in this Direct? Yes. I do think we're going to do that. I do think this time we're not going to get a separate anniversary Direct like we did for the 35th anniversary. It's just going to be baked into this Nintendo Direct and maybe make it a tiny bit longer. And I think Nintendo's going to capitalize on that. I think they're going to market this segment as part of the Direct. You know, it'd be great to see on the announcement, hey, join us for 50 minutes of brand new news for games on Nintendo Switch and Nintendo Switch 2, plus a first look at the celebrations for Mario's 40th anniversary. Let's talk most likely to least likely in terms of my predictions. Now, first one, most likely, I think we're going to see an announcement about the DLC for Mario Kart World. We're going to actually start to see what the expansion of that game looks like. Is it a new booster course pass? Is it adding a new island around the world? Is it adding new functionality and features? I want to know what it's all about, and I think we're going to start to hear about that in this Nintendo Direct. And I do think it's going to be paid DLC, so to anyone who was hoping for free DLC, no. No. And in terms of what that could look like, I think Donkey Kong Bonanza just came out, so it's a really good opportunity to maybe tie in some DLC with that, and yeah, and some other bits and pieces, maybe tying into other Mario games that are coming out in the future. Another thing that's super likely is we're going to see a Nintendo Switch 2 edition of Super Mario Bros. Wonder, because now look, okay. I have a conspiracy theory about this. In the Nintendo Switch 2 Direct, we saw this screen, and it was specifically when they were talking about the 120Hz display on Nintendo Switch 2. Is that 2D Mario? Interesting. They're using 2D Mario as an example for how 120Hz can benefit games on Nintendo Switch 2. There's no 2D Mario that does that right now, and I think that's the kind of game it would benefit the most, and it's also the kind of game that is most realistic that they're going to be able to achieve this higher frame rate with. So I think a new Nintendo Switch 2 edition of Super Mario Bros. Wonder is coming. It's going to increase the frame rate with a 120Hz option with 1080p visuals on the TV and on the handheld console itself using the handheld screen. My main thing is I don't think it's going to be a whole new game. It's not going to be like a new Super Luigi U kind of deal where it's a whole new game. I think maybe one or two extra worlds that are attached to the end, maybe with a bit more challenge and some more fun bosses. That'd be really cool. And yeah, that will make up the other portion of the Nintendo Switch 2 edition. Next up, and we're kind of bumping down the scale now to not as likely, I think Galaxy 2 is finally going to get some love on Nintendo Switch 2 exclusively. They're going to port Galaxy 2 somehow to Nintendo Switch 2, utilize the mouse controls for Yoshi, because, you know, with Galaxy 1, the pointy controls were fairly basic. It was usually just picking up and shooting star bits. In Galaxy 2, you know, you have to do a lot more with the pointer controls, especially when you're controlling Yoshi. So I think that's kind of what they've been waiting for. I think the mouse controls will offer a really good option for controlling Yoshi. And so yeah, that's what I think we're going to get. Do I think we're going to get Super Mario 3D All-Stars, Nintendo Switch 2 edition? No, this is Nintendo. Nintendo's got a Nintendo, and if Nintendo's not Nintendoing, then I'm confused. I just don't think it's ever coming back because it was a timed release at the time, and that's it. It's game over now. You're never getting it again. The only other thing I could see them doing is maybe enhancing Galaxy 1 even more and doing a Galaxy 1 plus Galaxy 2 pack with maybe the mouse controls and 4K visuals and stuff. But I don't think 3D All-Stars is ever coming back, and I'm really sorry to say that. Hey, it could do. Nintendo could pull a W for once, but you know, I just don't think they will. I just don't think they will. And then some things I don't think are going to happen before we get on to the next thing. I don't think Mario Maker 2 / Mario Maker 3 are going to get any love. I think that's kind of in the past for now. And I also don't think Super Mario Bros. 35 is going to get revived as Super Mario Bros. 40. Once again, it was a time exclusive game. I think we're moving on from it now, unfortunately. That just seems to be how Nintendo is. And then now we're getting into the very unlikely, but I predict that it could be time to finally do another remake of a 3D Mario game. Because look, let's be real, Donkey Kong Bonanza just came out. It was made by the 3D Mario team. I do not think we're getting another 3D Mario game for a little while, at least 12 to 18 months. I think it's like a good couple of years away at the very, very minimum. And so I think to tide us over with that, and you know, this is a project that could potentially be handed to a smaller team or a less experienced team within Nintendo, a remake of one of the 3D games that has already come out. Now, obviously, everyone clamors for Mario 64, but you forget, Nintendo have already remade that game. They made Super Mario 64 DS. I think if there was any of the games in the series that they were going to remake, it would be Super Mario Sunshine. And let's be real, hey, look, maybe this is a hot take, but Super Mario Sunshine, it needs some love, okay? No, I really wanted to love Super Mario Sunshine, but I just don't, okay? I just don't. I find the controls very awkward. I think there's a lot to do there. There's a lot to do, a lot to fix in the controls, and also the progression of the game. There are certain aspects to the progression which just feel very unfair and very half-baked. Things like the blue coins, things like how many shines you have to get before you can progress to the next area, don't feel as well thought out as they could be, and to be fair, that kind of makes sense. It seems that this game was rushed out of development because they needed games for the GameCube to try and drive sales of units. So yeah, I think, you know, assigning a smaller team, Grezzo style like they do with the Zelda games, assigning a team to doing that would actually be really interesting. Great to see what a modern day coat of paint looks like on those games. So yeah, would love to see that. And lastly, this is definitely not going to happen, but it's just for me something I want. I would love a Yoshi's Island remake. Oh my goodness, Nintendo, please. It's not even, you know, it's a Yoshi game, but like Mario's in it. It's Super Mario World 2. Hey, it counts. The original game absolutely holds up, but I'm just selfish, okay? I don't care that it holds up. I want to see a new take on it because I love that game so much. It's probably in my top 5 games of all time, so I'm not going to stop asking for it, especially after you put that Yoshi's Island course in the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Booster Course Pass. Holy shit, the fucking names for everything is getting so long. You know, I'm allowed some bold predickies in my predickies video, so back the fuck off. The only other thing that I think they'll do is they'll show some new merch and, you know, stuff that you can buy that will probably be gone by the end of March 2026 because, you know, that's how it works. I think that'll be a nice segment in the Direct, maybe at the end or maybe in the middle. You know, a nice 10-minute juicy segment of Mario stuff before we then move on with the rest of the Direct. Now let's get on to the big first-party games that I think we're going to see that are brand new announcements. Now, first of all, let's do some small stuff. I think we can get some NSO updates. I think that makes a lot of sense. First of all, I think N64 is going to get some new stuff. You know, we've been seeing these leaks where people have been lining up box arts with the development player for NSO N64, and there's been a few things on there, and one of them has recently been released, which is very interesting. You know, we saw stuff like Glover, Donkey Kong 64, Super Smash Bros. For the Nintendo 64, and the one that I'm excited about is Rayman 2. It seems like we could be getting Rayman 2 on the Nintendo Switch Online. It would be great to see like a new trailer for NSO that shows off some new games that we can expect to be released on like a monthly cadence going forward. So yeah, I'd love to see that, and obviously if Rayman 2 is on there, I'm gonna scream! I love nothing more than playing the worst version of Rayman 2. That's mean. The DS and the 3DS versions exist, but you know, it's a Rayman game on modern hardware and modern platform that you can easily get hold of and source and play. That is a rare thing. It's a rare thing to see. So, yeah, I'd love to see that. Next up, let's get to something more interesting. Let's get to Pikmin 4, Nintendo Switch 2 Edition. I think this is pretty likely, to be honest. Pikmin 4 is a beautiful looking game that feels like it could be a little bit held back by the Nintendo Switch hardware. I'd love to see that game running at a higher resolution and a higher frame rate. It could be the first ever Pikmin game to hit 60 frames per second. That would be insane. Wouldn't that be insane? Or did the Wii ones hit 60 FPS? I don't think so. That'd be great. New content, maybe add a new region to explore, and of course add mouse controls so that when we're playing with our Pikmin, we can shoot them using the mouse. Because I feel like that really feels like the next step from the Wii remote controls that people loved so much back in the day. Or just make Pikmin 5. Do that as well, Nintendo. But yeah, Pikmin 4, Switch 2, that's what I'm predicting for this Direct. And my next prediction is another Nintendo Switch 2 edition, and I'm gonna go I'm just gonna go out there on this one. I feel like Nintendo sometimes do things where they're just like, hey, no one's been asking for this, so we're going to make it. And I think Nintendo Switch 2 edition of Princess Peach Showtime is going to be coming, and it's going to be called Princess Peach Showtime Nintendo Switch 2 edition plus Curtain Call. And there's going to be a new expansion to the game called Curtain Call that expands the game in some way or another. And, you know, it'll update the visuals, it'll update the frame rate. The game didn't perform super well on Nintendo Switch 1, so, you know, I can see the benefit there. But it's going to be one of those ones where everyone's like, that game? Really? Okay. And then as part of the Metroid Prime 4 release schedule, I do think as the shadow drop for this Direct, we could see Metroid Prime 2 and Metroid Prime 3 in the same style that they did Pikmin 1 and 2 when Pikmin 4 came out. You know, just literally up-res the game, put it up with new controls. Jobs are good, and I think we could see a double pack for those games as part of the, you know, we've officially revealed the release date for Metroid Prime 4. It's a few months away. You've got time to play Metroid Prime 2 and 3. Here you go. They're just available. Super basic ports, but enjoy. Now we've got the big stuff. Now, let's get out of the way first some things I don't think we're going to see for the big stuff. Now, I don't think we're going to see Animal Crossing. Sorry, Animal Crossing fans. I'm really sorry. I know you've had the shit kicked out of you for a couple of weeks, and I'm sorry about that. I also don't think we're going to be seeing Zelda in any real way other than Hyrule Warriors. I would love to see Zelda, but I just don't think it's time. What I do think we're going to see is a new Fire Emblem. I could see that happening. It's coming out in 2026. And then also, I think we might finally see a new game from Monolith Soft that's a brand new open world JRPG that's not Xenoblade. I think it'll be a new franchise, a brand new adventure on Nintendo Switch 2. It's going to look jaw-dropping, it's going to look awesome, and you're going to be like, how is this on this? How does that work? And as part of that announcement, I think we could finally see Xenoblade 1, 2, 3, and X finally get Nintendo Switch 2 updates to improve the frame rate and the performance. And then, you know, they announced their brand new big RPG juicy game coming in 2026 for Nintendo Switch 2. Okay, and then here's my last one, and I can't decide. I've been flip-flopping between two. And, you know, these are big predictions. These are quite unlikely, but I think it might actually be time for a new F-Zero or a new Star Fox on Nintendo Switch 2, and I can't decide which one I think it's going to be, so I'm just going to say both and be a little baby and just be like, well, I'm going to claim both, and then whichever one it is, if it is one of them, I'm going to just claim the points. But I think we could see one of those coming to Nintendo Switch 2, and that's going to be the big announcement for 2026. So yeah, these are all probably wrong, these predictions. These are probably all wrong. If the Direct exists, these are probably wrong. But hey, it was fun to make them. I enjoyed the journey, and we made it to the end. But hey, what do you think of my predictions? Let me know down in the comments. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you have predictions of your own? Let me know. Do you think there's going to be a Nintendo Direct at all? Let me know. If I'm able to, I'm going to record my reaction, but if not, we'll definitely do some discussions afterwards to talk about all the big juicy news that Nintendo has dropped for us and to see what's happening next. But for now, that's it. Those are the predictions. That's everything. So, for now, I'll see you around.